I get it when you're about to spend a few $100s on a screen. The fear of ending up with a blank wall that looks worse than the projector is real. You've probably Googled best projector screen for a living room and seen a flood of glossy black canvases, but you also know your ceiling isn't totally dark and you don't want to drill a massive frame just to hang something that never lives up to its hype. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon, and I'm here to walk through why the Elite Screen's Aeon CLR3 123-inch might actually be the sweet spot for a room that gets a little light, or why it could feel like overkill for a pure black home theater. First off, the category you're dealing with is Ambient Light Rejecting, ALR, screens meant for ultra-short-throw, UST, projectors. The whole point of an ALR surface is to bounce ceiling and wall light away from the screen so the image stays punchy even when you can't black out the room. That's a different problem than a regular matte white screen, where any stray light just washes out the picture. In practice, you'll notice the difference the moment you try to watch a movie at 7 p.m. with the kitchen lights on. An ALR screen should keep the blacks from looking like gray mush, while a regular screen will look flat. The Aeon CLR3 is Elite's answer to that problem. It's a 123-inch panel, which translates to a 16:9 aspect ratio that works perfectly for most 4K content. The CLR3 part means it's the third generation of their ceiling light rejecting coating, promising roughly 90% light rejection. In a real-world test, that level of rejection typically gives you up to 70+ times better contrast than a standard white screen when the room has moderate ambient light. For a family that watches movies after dinner and can't afford to black out the whole living room, that improvement is noticeable. The shadows in a thriller stay deep, the colors in a Pixar film stay vivid, and you don't have to stare at the projector's lamp to see what's happening. One of the biggest practical strengths is the edge-free, fixed-frame design. Unlike tension-drawn screens that need a roller mechanism or a wall mount with a visible border, the Aeon's frame sits flush against the wall, giving it the appearance of a painted surface rather than a bulky screen. The frame holds the canvas tight, which eliminates the dreaded wiggle you sometimes see when a screen isn't properly tensioned. The result is a clean look that blends into a modern home theater setup. You can actually mount it on a ceiling-mounted UST projector and it looks like part of the room, not an afterthought. Because it's a gray screen, not pure black, you get an extra boost in perceived contrast when you're dealing with a projector that can't hit true 4K brightness levels. Most UST units max out around 2,500 to 3,000 lumens, and that's enough for a dark room but can struggle when there's ambient light. The gray surface essentially pre-filters the image, making whites a bit less bright but keeping the blacks from lifting. If you've ever watched a sports game in a bright basement and the whites of the field looked washed out, a gray ALR screen can bring that brightness back to life without sacrificing detail. Now, let's talk about the hidden trade-offs. The screen's performance is tightly coupled to the projector's throw distance and lens shift. Because the Aeon is built for UST, you'll need a projector that can focus at a few inches from the wall. If you have a standard long-throw projector, you'll end up with a blurry image or a lot of keystone distortion. The screen won't magically fix optical mismatches. Also, the gray surface means that in a truly dark room, the blacks can appear a touch softer than on a dedicated black screen, like those used in dedicated home cinema rooms. If your primary viewing environment is a completely light-sealed basement, you might get a better picture with a high-gain black screen that absorbs more light instead of reflecting it. Installation is another practical factor. The Aeon comes as a fixed frame that you need to mount directly to the wall or ceiling. That's great for a permanent setup, but it also means you have to commit to a spot and make sure the wall can handle the weight. The frame is solid steel, and while it's not heavy enough to need studs for every screw, you'll want to anchor it securely. The process isn't as simple as pulling out a roll-up screen, so if you're looking for a plug-and-play solution for a rental or a temporary home theater, this might feel like too much effort. Who should buy it? If you have a dedicated media room or a living room where you can't afford total blackout, own a UST projector, and want a screen that looks as good as it performs, the Aeon CLR3 hits the sweet spot. It's especially compelling for families who watch a mix of movies.